As I drove to work this morning, I again torture myself listening to talk radio, and I listened to a news item excitedly announcing this initiative to have trivia games played on one of Calgary's city buses to encourage people to ride. I thought I was listening to a parody report, like something from The Onion or something, but no, I was wrong. It was real. You see, since the pandemic began, ridership on Calgary's city transit has plummeted as lockdowns were imposed and people began working from home. And now, despite the lockdowns and work from home orders being rescinded for months, and Calgary's downtown is beginning to bustle again due to the high energy prices, transit ridership is still flatlined at 60% of what it was in 2020. People are refusing to use public transit unless they absolutely have to. City authorities, though, they're pretending, I guess, that the issue is cost or boredom, because they've been announcing initiatives such as cut-rate transit passes and cute karaoke and trivia games on buses. Yeah, karaoke as well. And I say pretending because they damn know what the problem is. City transit facilities and trains have been overwhelmed with out-of-control addicts, and riders don't feel safe. We've been reporting on this for years now, but unless there's been something outstanding, such as a stabbing on an LRT platform, and they've been happening a lot, actually, the city tends to act as if the problem isn't happening. Addicts set up shop and took over Calgary's southern LRT stations. They literally were camping and out of control within those facilities. Discarded needles and human feces were commonplace. And passengers had to run a gauntlet through addicts in various states of impairment to try and get to the train to commute. In response, though, rather than try and maintain order in the stations, the city of Calgary just closed them to the public. Paying passengers had to shiver on outdoor platforms looking at heated buildings they paid for, sitting up locked. The addicts then moved on into roving into the parking lots, and car break-ins, of course, exploded out there. Yet the city apparently is mystified as to why people won't ride transit. On downtown LRT platforms, if you haven't been downtown lately, guys, you see it. The shelters are crowded with addicts openly consuming meth, heroin, and God knows what else. Groups of addicts gather and huddle, and while others are aggressive and shouting and throwing things and kicking windows. This is commonplace down here now. Why on earth would anybody not want to ride on that? A little karaoke will fix it, right? Likewise, due to addicts using public washrooms as shooting galleries, the city simply closed the washrooms rather than deal with it. After parking today, I did my usual walk through the underpass on 9th Avenue at 8th Street there. Garbage and the smell of piss and the sights of discarded drug paraphernalia on the sidewalk and stairwells. It's common. It's down there all the time. The denialists, though, they say this is due to a lack of supervised consumption sites. That spot's about a 5-minute walk from a supervised consumption site. How many dozens of these, hundreds of these would we need then to keep addicts from shooting up all over the place? They choose not to use those centers. So let's quit denying it. That's the denial factor. We got a problem here. Another part of the denial is that addicts are harmless. They are not. The frequent stabbings, robberies, and vandalism in areas dominated by addicts pretty much puts lie to that. My walk brings me past the Century Gardens Park. That's the one that they renovated downtown recently. Very nice waterfalls, benches. They've also got permanently 2 security guards on there full-time walking around. And even then, almost every park bench is loaded with addicts in the morning, most of them sleeping off the evening. One even set up an elaborate little shelter, this just today, with a stolen patio umbrella. I mean, come on, let's not pretend he bought it. Denialists say these people are setting up in parks because they need homes. Well, it's kind of true, but for the most part, it's bullshit. We have plenty of shelter space. They can't inhabit it because they're too out of control with their addictions. For the same reason, of course, they're not in any condition to live in any kind of permanent home right now. In California, the denialists have gotten so extreme, Los Angeles City Council is looking at a law that would force hotels to take in addicts if they have any empty rooms. They'd have to report daily to the city if they have any rooms available, and the city will place the addicts in there. Now, anybody with common sense knows this would destroy the hotels and the rooms. Guests and staff don't want to live or work in a homeless shelter full of addicts. That's not what they signed up for. Hotels are either going to close or be trashed if this legislation goes through. So why would a city council do such a thing? Because they're in denial. They're perpetuating this myth that most of the homeless people are just people who fell through the cracks and need a hand up. Quit beating around the bush. The vast majority of people we see on the street are addicts. They're junkies. Let's just say it as it is. I'm not saying we shouldn't have sympathy for the addicts. They're people in dire straits and they need help and treatment. We'll never solve the problem, though, until elected officials quit denying what it is. Until we start seeing some policies and solutions being proposed based on the harsh realities of dealing with addicts, we're going to continue to lose our public parks, washrooms, and transit as the epidemic overwhelms them all, possibly even hotels if we follow California's lead. Quit sugarcoating things by saying terms like vulnerable people, and quit pretending they just need a job or a home. They need to get off the drugs somehow. And this isn't an easy task by any means, but it's right where we have to start if we want to have any hope of improvement. Step 1 to recovery is admitting you have a problem. Karaoke on a bus won't be fun as long as you're watching knife fights between addicts during the ride. Stop the denial, admit the problem. It's addicts. Junkies, if you want to call it that. Until you start facing that, nothing's going to get better.